Hi there! In this video I wanted to explore differences between motion controllers for Wii and PS3. So we have PS3 Move that had a very limited adoption, unfortunately, and Wii that had a motion controller from the beginning. So firstly, because those consoles are basically already retro, they came out in mid-2000s, and the upgraded motion controller for the Wii and the motion controller for the PS3 came out both in 2010. So the Wii Remote Plus and the Move controller here. So they're roughly the same and they are from the same generation, but they had a different approach because basically we had already a motion controller for past 5 years, and PS3 just introduced one. So let me show you what you get in the package. So for the PS3 you get the Move controller and a camera. This is a standard VGA camera, USB one with a microphone, but ordinarily it isn't used in any games. The microphone, I mean, and here's the motion controller that you would get in the package. There is also another navigation controller, but it can be replaced by the standard DualShock 3 or 6-axis free controller. This is a DualShock 3 one, and because it basically what the motion controller, the other controller does is this part of the controller. So you have a D-pad, you have the analog stick, and 2 buttons, I think. So not a lot, and most of the games are compatible to play them without those. And you also can do a lot of things with this one. And now for the Wii, you have your motion controller, you have the IR bar, and also you have the navigation controller. And they are very similar within the setup if you get a navigation controller only for the PS3. Apart from the navigation controller for the PS3 is actually wireless. But let's dig a little bit deeper and let me show you how they differently approach this. For the similarities, they both have trigger buttons, they both have main face buttons. Additionally, 4 face buttons here, and a home button, that's PS3 home button too, but the difference is the PS3 controller has start and select buttons on the sides. They are not used often, by no means, but they can be used. Often you would press select for some kind of calibration of this. If you don't have a Remote Plus, it would be there is additional text here that would say that this is a Remote Plus, or have an attachment, the Wii Motion Plus. Then you don't have to calibrate this at all. It doesn't have any kind of calibration, basically, apart from calibrating the camera, which I will talk in a moment. And apart from this, there are basically no major differences. This controller runs on AA's and also has a sync button that you would use button under the lid on your Wii to sync those two up, but that's only for the initial sync, or if you are changing Wii's, as far as I know. This one runs on a built-in lithium-ion cell. That's the current, but I'm not sure about the capacity. It's around 1000 milliamp hours, but it uses mini USB. The problem with all PS3 controllers is that you have to have USB host to charge them. So you have to have your computer turned on or your console turned on. So it has to be active USB device, so that's a little bit problematic. And actually what people recommend is to put your Wii in a sleep mode, where the LED changes to orange, not red, so it still has connectivity to the Wi-Fi, but it takes a very small amount of power, but it would charge the PS3 controllers without any problems, while the console itself won't. So And now those two controllers have accelerometers, so they are know in which way you are swinging them, in the meaning that in which axis you are swinging them and how fast. Emotion Plus added the gyroscope, so it would know exactly the angular motion, basically, which this also has it built in. The angular motion is also built in here, but also it has a magnetometer, so it knows how the controller is facing as to the Earth magnetic poles, but also it has a thermometer that would help with the calibration of this, so that's a little bit different. It requires also because they both have gyroscopes, they both can require calibrations. So and this basic controller without the Motion Plus doesn't require any calibration at all. Basically, it's very simple. And now let's talk a little bit about the front end, because you can see that here's a bulb and here's something that would look like a remote, but actually it's an infrared camera, very low resolution one. Talking about the motion detector, it also requires for both of them the part that would you ordinarily put above or below a TV, and the VGA camera we have here with a microphone. As far as I know, it's rarely used for any games, the microphone I mean. Sometimes the camera is used to record people, playing and do kind of cool snaps, things like that. But it is basically the iToy camera, what you have here. And the infrared sensor bar is basically two infrared LEDs on both sides, so it doesn't matter if you cover the middle of them or do any kind of stuff. If you can put this behind your TV, where the stand would cover this part, and it would work quite well. But the angular, the viewability from this side is kind of important, so you have to figure out how to do this. This camera is a little bit also problematic because it has a horrible cord, 2 meters. So I'm not sure if everyone has enough space, but I sometimes use an extension cord for the USB. If you have a newer PS3 models, it will use one of the ports, so that may be a problem, because for most newer models there were only 2 ports. And here we have 4 meters cord that's very flexible. It doesn't matter how you put it, you can put it upside down. It doesn't really care, so it's very, very simplified. Another thing you will notice that the Wii works in very tight rooms, small spaces. So thinking, Japanese houses and so on. While the PS3 stuff, it actually requires you to have quite a few square feet around you to play with it. Most of the games you can actually play with using a Wii, I don't know, to 1.5 meter from your TV. It should be okay. So it's more, let's say, user friendly and more comfortable. And also the camera angle is very tight. You can change the zoom. What's clicking here is the actually zoom. And other things you have here are 2 LEDs, one blue and one red. Red usually lights when the motion controller is out of sight of the camera. We usually doesn't care really, to be honest. Other stuff are navigation controllers, so both of them also has motion sensing, so accelerometers. The angular sensing on the DualShock is a little bit better. This is very simplified, simple accelerometer, just like here. Also, this one is wired. The navigation controller is also wireless. So for both of those consoles, you can connect up to 4 sets of controllers. As you can also see, the differences between Wii and the PS3 is that navigation is completely on the left side, while you have analog in your non-dominant hand and the digital stuff in your dominant hand. You have everything here because the navigation controller is everything has analog and the D-pad is on the left side. Okay, so here's how the remote can see the world. This is as sensitive as this setting on the Wii, and you can actually see a view from the camera. So I have two sources, and I'm not exactly sure which one is correct, but it's probable that it actually has a nominal resolution of 128 by 96, and that's probably it. And maybe the Wii is doing all this moving, but also the information I found here that it can track up to 4 points. That's the infrared bar actually. So those are those two little points you can see here. So if I'm closer, they are wider apart and bigger. If I'm further away, you can see that they're smaller. And if I add my remote here, you can also see it. So that's infrared, but also allow me to show you something. I have a very strong light here, so it can track apparently up to 4 points. And as far as I understand it only transmits over the Bluetooth. There is another wireless connection. So it transmits the information about those points only. So it will only use, as you can see, the strongest point for the transmission. And that's quite a lot of points. A lot of them are blinking. So that's the limitation of this little camera. But it probably does all the processing on its own and only transmits the 4 points coordinates plus the information about their size basically. Here's the camera itself connected to the PS3. As you can see, blue LED means that it's part on. Red is basically some kind of problem with the camera. Here is how the image looks like. So it's nothing to write home about. It's very basic. It doesn't even, I'm not sure if it reaches 30 FPS properly. So that's not too great, but you know, it's enough for this kind of controller. Because a lot of games use Move, but they were not exclusive to it. This is one of the examples how you would set up the controllers, and this would be a 6 controller out of I think 8 if I remember correctly, and this is how you would connect. So you would point it at the camera and push the select button, and it would choose a color of the LED that's infrequent in the image it has currently. So if I retry this, maybe I will have a different color of the button. So that's pretty common, and you may actually, that's a little bit different. You may actually have to calibrate several times during the gameplay. So that's something that's not in the Wii. That Wii calibration would be only a controller calibration, and that's only applicable for the Wii Motion Plus controller. That you would just put the controller face down on your table for a few seconds and it will be already calibrated. And some of this would actually require you to show your full frame of your person, so you actually have to have at least 1.5, I don't know, 2 meters on your right and left, and so the camera can catch all your movements while playing with the move. So that's the main difference here. So how much space do you need to play with the game? So now the most important part, what are the games and how those controllers are being utilized. The Move, if you look on paper, is a lot better controller. It has all kinds of different features. It's completely wireless too, as opposed to this one. So it would seem that it would be a much better idea, especially since the Wii, the Nintendo released additional accessory to its controller because it wasn't tracking properly enough. But generally speaking, all those controllers use a jittery movement. There is not enough feedback for you, so you have a motor inside of both of those that would, you know, you can feel if you're doing something and so on, or touching something in the game. But that's not enough also feedback. And to be honest, the controller that Wii is built around these controllers. It has a much better game support, and there are not nearly enough games for the PS3. So my personal favorite, even though back at the time when I bought this, it was quite expensive for accessory like that I didn't actually use a lot. So even though I was Sony's fanboy back at the time, it was 2010, and Wii is far more better here. I would personally recommend this, especially since those kind of games are not only for kids, grandma can play and so on. So that they are easy to get into and so on. They are not nearly as complicated. They rarely use any buttons, and or they usually use a trigger and the A button, and that's it. What you have here. They are very simple and they are pretty cool, if you ask me. One thing I don't like is that, for example, Wii Sports Resort requires the accessory or the compatible Motion Plus controller, so that's not great. But the games you have, they are finer games. So if adults would play, so I showed you the golf game a moment ago. It's a lot more precise. You can have a verified movements with your club, and do all kinds of stuff. But for general party games, we as the winner here. And the both, I think both remotes are similarly expensive, even though this one has a camera. But and also, one more thing, the battery life. Here it's 10 hours on a full charge, and here it's about 30 according to Nintendo. But again, this is a rechargeable battery, so pick your poison. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I picked up Wii recently because it became retro and the prices seem to shoot up. So I wanted to pick one up for myself and see how it actually works, because I never had one back in the day. So we maybe be looking at some other Wii stuff in the future. I can't promise anything because the packages aren't really coming to here, the delivery packages. So that may be a problem, but we will see what future will bring. I hope you enjoyed. Take care, guys, and see you next time.